Hello, good morning, everybody. Since yesterday we are discussing so many things about airway, almost all the things are covered. I try to explain in the next 20 to 25 minutes about unanticipated difficult airway in ICU. Before going to the main topic, I will tell you some of my personal experiences. I have done my MD anesthesia from 2005 to 2008 at SWIMS Hospital, Tirupati. There, like how the ICU intubations are different from OT, I just will tell you with some examples. Anybody of you heard poisoning with supervismal 33? Like what is a hair dye? What is its peculiar features is at that time when we are in MD anesthesia SWIMS, this is a hair dye. Its peculiar feature is if it's taken after that airway edema will occur after 2 or 3 days, and the patient will go into renal failure also. That because of that airway edema which is unanticipated, on the first day the patient will be conscious and obeying commands, airway will be patent. Slowly that airway swelling will rise and it causes difficulty in airway. At that time we faced a lot of difficulty to intubate that patient and finally land up with emergency tracheostomy, but the patient will be stable. So like that, the airway management in the ICU will be different from the OT. It is one of the most commonly performed procedure in the ICU is intubation. Difficult intubation incidence is 10%. We faces unique challenges with the highest risk of complications. So the 4th National Audit Project of the Royal College of Anesthetists and Difficult Airway Society 2011 guidelines, they formulated their guidelines. They told that there are significantly higher rate of adverse outcomes related to the airways. There are several deficiencies of airway management in intensive care units and emergency department when compared with the operation theater. So this is a graph showing the safety gap. Safety gap means the difference between the what you are practicing in your ICU or OT and what is 100% ideal. So this blue column represents the practice before NAP4 study, and this green column represents the their performance after the NAP4 study. And like that, with each recommendation followed, their performance or airway intubation techniques are increasing, and finally the safety gap should be decreased. This is the meaning of the closing the safety gap. So why intubations in ICU are different is most airway interventions are reactive and emergent. In the OT, there is a pre-anesthetic checkup will be done just before the day of the surgery, and so the airway assessment will be easy, and they will discuss with the teammates and the seniors how to perform that any difficulty arises. Standard airway assessment is difficult in the ICU. Logistical challenges because even to reach the head end of the patient is also difficult because of the various wires, ECMO machines, dialysis machine, all these to reach to the head end of the patient is difficult. So patient factors also, already Dr. Satish sir explained previously, patient will be hypoxic, uptended, there is a high risk of aspiration due to gastric stasis, due to hypokalemia, paralytic ileus, post-abdominal surgery status, and unstable cardiopulmonary reserves because of the various pathologies like neuro problems, liver problems, and kidney problems, all this. Majority of the patients will be in metabolic acidosis with sepsis. With all these, the intubations in the ICU are different and difficult. Normal airway also becomes difficult physiologically because of the fluid resuscitation, capillary leak syndrome due to dengue shock syndrome, prone ventilation, there is high chances of dislodgement of the ET tubes, all these. So anatomically difficult airway and physiologically difficult airway. Anatomical difficult airways means there is a jaw neck immobility due to various pathologies, and there is secretions, blood and vomiting in the airway, cervical immobilization due to cervical spine injury with a collar, all this makes the airway difficult. Physiologically difficult airway, even though the patient is anatomically normal, is due to severe COPD or hypoxia, all prone ventilation, all these problems. So a walk through the guidelines of the Difficult Airway Society guidelines 2008, almost it is 18, almost it is same as that of 2015. There is a pre-oxygenation and peri-oxygenation. Pre-oxygenation, just now Dr. Satish sir told, 3 minutes oxygenation before induction, and peri-oxygenation is in the ICU, you have to oxygenate during the induction to the confirmation of the ET tube position also with the help of nasal cannula oxygen or high frequency nasal cannula, all this. And peri-intubation hemodynamic management is very important because the patients are hemodynamically very unstable. Rapid sequence induction, just now sir told, and video laryngoscopy, you have to be, it should be available and it should be expertization needed, and timely institution of front of neck access accordingly at the time of emergency is needed. So intubation checklist, whenever the intubation checklist, all the teammates should be present. Preparation of the patient, preparation of the equipment, preparation of the team, and preparation for the difficulty, all these to be taken care. So optimization of the patient position, whenever the patient is preparing for intubation, it has to be at least put 20 to 30 degrees head up. If the nimbus bed is there, it has to be deflated before intubation. Identify the cricothyroid membrane with the help of ultrasound or the laryngeal shake technique, which I will tell in the next coming slides. Awake intubation is not at all an option in ICU. And in the preparation of the equipment, whatever the, suppose any boozy or stillet who is using, the assistant whenever performing, so many times I observed when we are performing a difficult airway, the assisting person is very, very important. So when we are doing the laryngoscopy, that person who is assisting with boozy should not leave the other end of the boozy, otherwise the procedure becomes very, very difficult. Preparation of the team. So the person who is giving cricoid force should know how to do it. So just before the induction of anesthesia, the cricoid force to be 10 newtons or 1 kg before induction of anesthesia, and 30 to 40 newtons or 3 to 4 kgs after the induction of anesthesia. How will you know that it is 10 newtons or 30 newtons? It is the understanding between the person who is intubating and the person who is doing that. According to the person who is intubating, you have to give the cricoid pressure. And noting the time, why it is important is noting the time immediately after the induction of anesthesia, you have to note the time. Why it is if the number of attempts are increasing, you have to go for the next emergency airway. If it is crossing beyond the 15 minutes, you have to alert the person who is intubating, we are going in a dangerous direction. So prepare for the difficulty. So yesterday in detail discussed about the plan A, plan B, plan C. Plan A is laryngoscopy and oxygenation. Plan B and C supraglottic airways. And the plan D is emergency front of neck access opening. After all this done, you have to discuss with the team anything further to be discussed. So human factors. Always the airway complications in the ICU occur due to the lack of patient preparation, equipment check, etc. So there is a high pressure or overload on the team leader who is performing the intubation and who is taking care of all this. For all this, Vortex approach is a graphical representation of how to assess with the difficult airway. In detail, yesterday we discussed, we will also go through that. This also in detail discussed yesterday, like how many members to be there during the time of intubation. So according to the number of persons, we have to allocate the each person what is their role. 6 persons, 5 persons, and 4 persons. Recently, like whenever the difficult airway arises, recently we have performed in the March 3rd, I remember the day, March 30th, 2020. On that day, we have performed the first intubation of COVID. During that time, we prepared everything. Only 3 persons went inside the room to intubate the patient. At that time, we have done with full PPEs. It is an unanticipated airway. when we are trying to perform the intubation, it becomes very, very difficult. Even we are unable to visualize the epiglottis also while intubating. It becomes very difficult, almost 5 or 6 times attempted, almost 20 minutes we have taken for the procedure. Finally, we intubated with the help of a buoy, and we intubated that patient, desaturated several times, but finally desaturation up to 70% only. Finally, we intubated that patient. So these are the real-time scenarios. Whatever that here showing in the figure, whatever that like that, leader is this side, the runner is this side, all the persons are not at the elective places. What is decided in the picture? It is just a picture, but it is not be happen in real-time scenario. So can we predict difficult intubations in the ICU? Makocha score will be tell about the difficulty in ICU. It is the single validated score. What is the Makocha score is? Like, it is divided into 3 components based upon the factors related to the patient, factors related to the pathology, and factors related to the operator. Factors related to the patient includes Mallampati scoring 3 or 4, it counts to 5, obstructive sleep apnea 2, reduced mobility of the cervical spine 1, limited mouth opening less than 3 centimeters is 1. So factors related to the pathology, if the patient is having coma, score 1, severe hypoxemia, less than 80%, score 1. Factors related to the operator, the person who is performing intubation is a non-anesthesiologist, then the score is 1. The total score is 12. If the score is less than 3 or 3, it predicts difficult intubation. Its specificity means negative predictive value is very high, 97 to 98%, and sensitivity means true positivity is 76 to 73%. It is the single most criteria or score in the ICU for the difficult intubation. So in detail, we discussed yesterday about the plan A, plan B, and plan C. And the final is cricothyrotomy front of neck access opening. What are the oxygenation techniques in the ICU? ICU patients are likely to desaturate very fast. If the patient is not having any respiratory failure, pre-oxygenation should be done with a tight fitting mask with 10 to 15 liters per minute, 100% oxygen for 3 minutes. In hypoxic patients, you have to give the oxygenation with CPAP with 5 to 10 centimeters water, or non-invasive positive pressure ventilation with an inspiratory pressure of 5 to 15 centimeters and a PEEP of 5 centimeters with a tidal volume of 6 to 8 ml per kg. Always nasal oxygen to be given throughout the airway management, that is the peroxygenation. So this is a graph showing with each oxygen device how much saturation is achieved. If you see with oxygen face mask, the maximum saturation achieved in a difficult airway scenario, it is less than 90%. With high flow nasal cannula, it is reaching greater than 90%. With non-invasive ventilation, it is reaching up to 95%. With high flow nasal cannula plus non-invasive ventilation, the saturation achieved up to almost near to 100%. So a combination of high flow nasal cannula and non-invasive ventilation is better for better oxygenation during the procedures. So induction of anesthesia and laryngoscopy, rapid sequence induction is appropriate. Modified rapid sequence induction is slightly different from the rapid sequence induction. Here they will concentrate more on the apneic oxygenation. And the drugs we discussed already, ketamine, rocuronium, all this. Laryngoscope attempts to be limited to the 3, and the 4th attempt should be by a senior person. Here, McIntosh blade is a curved type of blade. Miller's blade is a straight type of blade. Apart from these 3, one more laryngoscope is there, special laryngoscope, that is known as McCoy's blade. This McCoy's blade is having a, at the tip of the blade, there is a flex, you can flex it with the help of the handle. That is very useful in the difficult airway assessment. Because of that, if you go beyond the epiglottis will be moved up, you can easily see the vocal cords. This we will show in the time of stations, you can easily understand. This McCoy blade is very, very important in the difficult airway equipment. Plan B and C includes supraglottic airway devices and face mask after failed intubation, which we already discussed. Plan D is the emergency front of neck access opening. So you will come to this plan after plan A, plan B, and plan C. is failed. Plan A is oxygenation, plan A is B and C are the supraglottic airway devices, face mask ventilation, plan D is the emergency front of neck access opening. So what is meant by psychological priming? Psychological priming is you should not wait your decisions until the can't intubate, can't oxygenate scenario arises. You have immediately after the first attempt of failure of the intubation, you have to open the front of neck access opening. So open surgical approach is scalpel cricothyroidotomy, which we just now discussed. Identify the cricothyroid membrane using the laryngeal handshake or the ultrasound. What is laryngeal handshake is, see, this laryngeal handshake technique can be useful only in the thin-built persons. You have to use the non-dominant hand. Non-dominant hand, you have to feel the thumb and the middle finger should palpate the neck, and the middle finger should go from above to down. You have to palpate the Adam's apple. Just below the Adam's apple, that cricoid cartilage is there. In between the thyroid cartilage and the cricoid cartilage, cricothyroid membrane will be present. You have to move up and down and palpate the cricothyroid membrane. This technique will be useful only in the thin-built persons. If the patient is thick-built, muscular and fatty, you can't palpate the cricothyroid membrane. So at that time, you have to depend on the ultrasound techniques. Yesterday, Dr. Rajkumar told in detail about the ultrasound assessment of the cricothyroid membrane. Seldinger's technique and transtracheal jet ventilation are not recommended in the ICU because of their complications of barotrauma. So can't intubate, can't oxygenate, the final we have to go for the emergency cricothyrotomy. After all the patient is intubated well, is it our job over how to take care of the intubated patients? ICU patients are different from that in OT. They will be remained intubation for weeks, because suppose in operation theater, after the surgery is over, that's, they will extubate the patient, which is not happened in the ICU. Once the patient is intubated in the ICU, that the patient will be extubated after the original pathology or disease is corrected. It may take weeks or months. Suppose Guillain-Barré syndrome case is there, it may take difficult variety of Guillain-Barré syndrome may take 6 months to 1 year also. At that time, the patient may have to go from the intubation to tracheostomy after 15 days. So you have to be with the airway problems for a long time. And there are, apart from the intubations, other procedures, complex nursing care, repositioning. For the bedsore prevention, second hourly position changing is happening. During that time, there is a dislodgement of the tracheostomy or ET tube. All should be taken care in the ICU. And this ICU is taken care by the multidisciplinary team. In the operation theater, it is by the anesthetist and their team will be taken care. Airway displacement and reintubation is in danger. ICU airway incidents occurs after the airway is secured, 25% contributing to the patient's death. There is high vigilance degree of vigilance needed during transfers from ICU to the CT scan, MRIs, during the insertion of nasogastric tubes, etc. So coming to extubation strategies, up to 15% of extubated in the ICU may need reintubation within 48 hours. Reintubation after prolonged ventilation is more difficult because of the airway edema, and so always extubation should be planned. Be ready to reintubate. Post-extubation stridor occurs in 12 to 37% of the patients. Regular usage of steroids is not needed in the extubation, but if the stridor develops, you can try with the steroids, but there is no evidence. So in detail, we discussed about the vortex approach yesterday. Vortex approach is a graphical representation of a vortex model. Whatever we discussed, plan A, plan B, plan C, and the emergency front of neck access opening, which is determined in the form of graphic representation. It is simple graphic designed to be easily recalled. Emphasis on avoidance of repeated attempts with the same techniques when difficulty arises. So lifeline is maximum of 3 attempts permitted each time, either with the supraglottic airway device or face mask ventilation or the endotracheal tube. 4th attempt with each device should be by an expert. In case of failure of all attempts, you can't intubate, can't oxygenate, rescue, front of neck access to be done. So this is a graphical representation. The green zone is you are able to oxygenate. This is the face mask. This is the endotracheal tube. This is the supraglottic airway device. If all this fails, with each time 3, like you have to adjust the laryngoscopy, head and neck manipulations, laryngeal pressures, device changing, and adjuncts of airway like oral or nasopharyngeal airways, and whatever the available things, you have to try with these 3 at each device 3 times. If it is not possible, go for the emergency cricothyrotomy. So suppose if any of these things all failure, you have to go into the finally vertex model. Like finally this vertex is going into a final funnel shape, and finally you have to land up with the emergency cricothyrotomy. This just go through this video so that you can understand easily how is the vertex approach.
Sound in the laptop, sir.
రావట్లేదు. Hello. So the sound is not coming properly. Yeah, that's over with this. So that's all about the anticipation of unanticipated difficult airway. So these unanticipated things will happen every day or the other in ICUs. You have to be prepared well for all this. Thank you.